Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PBSE Podcast. This is Mark and Steve, episode 286. This submission came in from an addict, and I don't think, Steve, we've really tackled this in quite a while.
When I love addict submissions, can I just say we don't get nearly as much of them as we wish we did.
No, we wish we got more. But
so I just love it when a guy gets brave and is willing to put himself out there. I think it's great.
I'll read this, but I love where this guy's coming from. You and I are big fans of willingness, intentionality, right? The right motivation when you can hear it at the core center of a person. He tells us he's 27 years old, and he says he's been in recovery from pornography for a little over 3 months. I've been sober since I started recovery and have made so much progress that I never thought was possible. And boy, we applaud him for making such quick progress. That was not the case for me. He says, while I am still very early into my recovery journey and have a long way to go, I don't even have urges like I used to. But here's what scares me, and I love his vulnerability here. I know deep down that if I was exposed to pornography, right, like right now, I would still be stimulated by it, which is conflicting because I know how bad it is for everyone involved, especially myself. Logically, I know its harmful effects on myself, my partner, and our entire culture. Knowing the things that I do, I should be repulsed by the very sight of pornography, but I'm not there yet. Others would say that it's normal for guys because we are, quote, visual creatures. But I want more than that for myself and for my relationship. How do I make how I feel about porn align with what I know about porn? It's a great submission.
It is a great submission. Yeah, no, I really appreciated it. And we definitely honor this guy and his willingness to, really want to dive into this and kind of grow the aversion, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, what I really felt in his submission, and I have a pretty good feel for this because I've been through this myself, went through this for a really long time. I hear him saying, and this word's used a lot, he wants to have integrity, but I think we don't understand the meaning of integrity. I didn't for a long time. I just thought it meant being honest. But it means a lot more than that. Integrity comes from the word integrated. I want to feel inside myself like how I think and how I behave and what I choose each day is integrated with my value system, with what matters to me.
Yeah.
I want to stop being duplicitous. I want to stop being a walking contradiction, right? I want to become charactered, right? Charactered. And I really feel his yearning as he writes into us about him wanting to do that. I want to align inside of me, right? With what I really feel and value and what matters to me. And it's this contradiction that really is causing some turmoil in him. Because I know if I was just, pornography was just put right in front of my face right now, there would be some part of me that would still be attracted to it. And I hate that contradiction in myself.
Yeah. Well, and it is a good question. I mean, and we didn't put this in our preparation today, but Mark and I, most of you probably know, we published a book titled The Pornography Paradox several years ago.
The Pornography Paradox.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And you can find both versions of that on Amazon if you're so inclined. But One of the chapters, and I forget, Mark, what we titled it. I know I wrote it. I think it was like seeing the face of your enemy or knowing, pulling back the mask of your enemy or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And in there, we kind of go through and we outline, much of what this guy is talking about, right? Like, why is this actually a problem? Why is this an issue? Why even say no to it? Because, obviously the porn world itself, as many of you know, we've talked about on this program. I mean, they literally hire, uh, mental health professionals like Mark and myself, tragically, who are, I guess you could say, converted to the dark side, for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
In some cases, that are standing right off set on a pornography shoot and and their sole job is to one, make what's happening on the screen as appealing as possible. And a
Mhm.
big part of that is helping to address and identify any areas of the pornography, of what is being filmed, what is being created, anything to really connect with, not in all ways, but in many ways, any element of humanity. Seeing a person or seeing things as they fully are. It's all about objectification on a scientific level. How
Yes.
do I help this person I objectify by us taking steps in this, for example, filming process? By how do we help them to not feel anything? By us doing our part to strip away any pieces of that person,
Right.
right? That don't play into the pleasure based role that's intended.
Right. We don't want
Right.
any thoughts of family. We don't want any thoughts of commitment. We don't want any thoughts of the human heart or love
The
or
identity of these people involved, who they really are,
yeah,
right?
who these people are. We just want pieces and parts and a full, narrowed, looking through a drinking straw focus just on that.
Yes.
And anything else has got to be kept out of this.
And so it's, you can see how even in that, world, there's that effort to do that. And if objectification is one of the key gateways to pornography and pornography addiction, and not seeing it for what it is, logic would dictate. And I don't know if this is an actual word. I remember when Mark and I were writing that book, we kind of coined the term humanization. Again,
I think that is a word.
maybe it is a
Or
word,
the
but we
humanizing.
yeah, humanizing, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's building that back in. It's rather than the opposite, which is here you zero in on this myopic element or a few selective elements of something. It pulls back the horse blinders right on the eyes, and instead of just having this tunnel vision of this one narrowed element of this person or of connection or of intimacy, we start to see in a greater increasing fashion holistically, not just the whole person or the whole people involved, but we start to see the situation as a whole and what it all implies.
Yeah,
Right.
not just them, but me, right?
Correct.
And if we, as you and I were looking at this, I hadn't really looked at this for a long time. But a couple of books I wrote years ago when we were first becoming aware of just how insidious and overwhelming this whole pornography addiction thing was, clear back in the late 90s and early 2000s. We talked about what we call the four A's of pornography, right? Accessible. And now that's
More
we
than
don't
ever
we don't
before.
even talk about that anymore. I mean, it's everywhere, it's anywhere. You don't even have to push a button, right?
You could change the accessible to just instantaneous now.
Instantaneous, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we talked about accessible, we talked about affordable. Much of it's absolutely for free. In fact, during my addiction, all the addiction years, I don't think I ever paid once for
I
pornography.
don't believe I did either.
Oh,
Yeah.
instantly accessible, no cost, anonymous, so called. We now know, of course, anything you do online is never anonymous, right? But there's that aspect I can be in complete secret and stealth mode and nobody knows, in quotes. And the other A is it's aggressive. Some say, well, I'm not looking for it. Well, it's looking for you, and it will come and find you eventually. So you take all that, those four A's, and then you pile on top of that, and that's what you were saying, how the pornography industry knows full well what they're tapping into with us as individuals, right? We have this powerful internal design and these mechanisms to notice each other, to
Yeah.
feel attraction or to feel, kind of moved or nudged in the direction of another person. And what is all that designed to do? To help us to identify a partner, to pair off and literally become bound or welded to another individual for life, right? All of these beautiful and amazing, and that's not the only part of it. We'll talk in a minute about all the other aspects of this, this attraction, these drives within us, and what they, all the beautiful parts of what they do. But this is all being tapped into. So our sexualized culture exploits these beautiful internal gifts all the
Yeah.
time. And so, so where do we get to the place of where this guy that wrote in, he says, I don't know, in essence, I don't know how to balance this. I either got to feel this stuff or not feel it.
Mm.
How many times, Steve, do you and I get to the place where we said, there's only one answer? I got to shut all this drive, this attraction, these feelings, it's got to all be shut down.
Yeah.
In fact, we kind of say it with a little bit of a chuckle, but it wasn't funny at the time. Both you and I both said, I think I'm going to go in and just have my genitals removed.
Oh yeah. I seriously,
That,
I actually remember Googling that once, like,
oh,
and like terms like genital mutilation, because wasn't familiar with it at the time. And,
hmm,
like, how, is this legal? I mean, like, I
hmm,
remember like being really desperate that way.
yep,
And it does bring up a good point because it's understandable. And we, again, really applaud this guy's desire. I just want to be as anti this old behavior as much as I possibly can.
yeah,
And part of that I think is recognizing a few things. I have been sober for a little over 10 years. Um, and I can really relate to what this guy said, right? If somebody he says something along the lines of his question, if I were to be, porn again today, I know a part of me would be drawn to it. I mean, I'm gonna be real with all of you in context, okay? If somebody were to show me porn today, a part of me would be drawn to it.
a part of me would,
Emphasis on part. Yeah, now let me qualify the
yeah,
statement, okay? Because before all of you freak out, okay? Why? Why would that be? Because I'm a sexual being,
right,
right? I'm a sexual being, and I know better than almost anyone on the planet all of the horrible things that can accompany pornography. And it is true. There are many forms of pornography that would be averse to me regardless. But if I was to access in my case, more traditional forms of pornography, not that that makes it better, that, encapsulate different versions of, adults being sexual or whatever the case may be, there's a part of me I guarantee would find that arousing. There will always be a few brain cells in the back of Steve's brain that want to, and a part of Steve's midbrain that will always find sex appealing. And that is not, I shouldn't even say two brain cells, a part of me that will always find sexuality arousing. And that's good
well,
because that sexuality piece is a big piece. We're right now in Dare to Connect, we're talking about the 8 different areas of intimacy, sexuality being one of them. Sexuality in and of itself is part of what draws me to my partner,
exactly, that's
right? It's part of what adheres me to my partner. Now, I'm attracted to my wife in many ways, and we're going to talk about that word attraction for a minute. But one of them is absolutely sexual. It's not the only one by any means, but it is one. And so I can very much relate to where, and Mark, I think, can as well, where we were where we're at with this guy. I guess I'll just make a declaration right now. I guess I'd be concerned or worried if again that specific type of pornography. I guess I'd be worried if there was a part of that an element to that I didn't find arousing, because then something would be off with my sexuality. Like but the key is to be able to, going back to what we were saying, right? Is it's not even about giving in or not. It's about seeing it for what it really is. Here is this thing, right, that is displaying one element that appeals to a small segment of my brain, while also being cognizant aware of that it's poison in all these other ways, right? If you look at a heroin addict, I was actually reading a really interesting article on heroin just the other day, and how many studies have indicated it is the most addicting substance on the planet,
hmm,
which I think is somewhat subjective, but that's what I was reading about. And I was just thinking about that as we were getting ready for today. Would it be normal or sane for a heroin addict to not ever for a part of him to never want heroin again. I don't think so at all. It causes a dopamine release in the brain that is well documented, far beyond what the brain's capable of producing on its own. Of course, if he was to go do heroin again, chemically speaking, if nothing else, of course it would feel good. But that doesn't mean that simply because something feels good or an element to it is pleasurable doesn't make the whole thing pleasurable when you see it holistically,
Right.
when you were embracing the entire package,
Right.
when you were
Well,
looking at it for what it really is, when you're pulling back that mask.
and
Right.
here's a message I was taught when I was growing up in a very rigid religious culture. And this message was preached at me all the time. They may have not said it with these exact words, but the message was definitely got through. This whole sexual thing, any sexual feelings, any drive, any attraction, any feeling movement towards someone of the opposite sex, that's dirty, dark, and evil. But you know what? Be sure and save it for someone you really care about one day.
Mark's probably said that 1,000 times over the years that we've worked together, and it always makes me laugh
I know, but
because it's true.
it was a clear message that was sent to me. And
Oh,
what I now know and wish I had known then was it's not about these natural inborn feelings, right? It's not about that. It's what we do with it, how we direct it and channel it. Does it dictate to us or do we dictate to it?
yeah.
Now, what does the culture say? Well, boys will be boys. Nah, that's just a man thing. My response to that is bullcrap, to put it mildly. I could say that's just bull, right? And this guy says, I want more for myself as a man than that. Now, we are asked about this in our Dare to Connect program all the time, aren't we?
It's this debate between lust versus attraction.
And just regular, normal, human attraction. We get asked about it all the time.
Where does it move from healthy attraction to toxic lust?
Now, we're actually in the process of putting together what we call our D2C Academy, which is advanced courses and training. This is asked so much. We're about to do a 4 to 6 module advanced training on this topic. And as
It'll be
Steve,
what, our third or fourth course, Mark, in the academy? Third or fourth course?
third course,
Third course, yeah.
third advanced course. As we were preparing to do this training, to write out our outline and so forth, I did a Google search on quote attraction. 90% of the responses that came back in a Google search were what? Romantic attraction. And this is where most of, a lot of betrayed partners write into us and say, my partner shouldn't be attracted, in quotes, to anyone other than me. And we realized as we were researching it that nearly every partner interprets the word attraction as romantic attraction. That's a very narrow part of attraction, right? Attraction, noticing other human beings. How do I say this? What attracts me to notice in others, be them men, women, children, old people, young people, right? Dogs, cats, aardvarks, whatever I notice in the world around me, that began to be pieced together from the moment I came into the world. It's based on my life history. It's based on how I was raised.
There's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's even genetically coded to a degree as well.
Genetically coded from my ancestors. It's what country and culture I grew up in. Most of what I am, quote, attracted to, not romantically, just feeling some sort of nudge toward, has been built into me my whole life. So I don't have control over that initial feeling of attraction, just as I have no control over the initial pull of gravity. But I do have total control over what happens next in the moment after I feel it. And that's right. That is the whole focus with when we teach, guys in recovery. And we talk about the difference between just simple plain attraction or noticing versus going into full-on lust, fantasy, etc. Right? And he asks, how can I be repulsed by pornography, which he should be, by the way, in every way. Steve and I will tell you, we find no redeeming qualities in pornography whatsoever. Zero. And I don't say that about many things, but that's one of them. So how can he be repulsed by that while also not shutting down his normal internal feelings and motivations as a guy, which includes being a sexual being? How can you be repulsed and recognize it instantly for what it is, even though you're having the initial feeling, and intentionally, right, channel, direct, and make healthy decisions, faithful and loyal and exclusive decisions for your partner? How do you do all that with just not shutting down the whole thing? Boom. Hey everybody, PBSE Podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. Right. I mean, our in the program, and if this topic interests you, again, come grab the 2-week free trial of Dare to Connect at daretoconnectnow.com. It's going to be, this is such a requested topic for us. That's why we're actually creating a formal, academy set of modules around it, because this whole idea of lust versus attraction can lead to so many problems, not just for guys like this awesome guy who wrote us in, but it can literally induce shame unnecessarily into relationships. It can create, if these topics aren't understood, it creates unrealistic expectations for couples in recovery.
Yeah.
It can cause all sorts of problems. Oftentimes we can become unintentionally so we can start to target sexuality rather than the pornography or the infidelity or the other things. Sometimes as we started, right? And it's very common for addicts, but even partners can fall into this trap too. This thing has been so bad for me, or so bad for my husband, or so bad for our marriage. I just want it out.
Well, and what happens as a result of that is we see well-intentioned and very understandable responses to it, but where people, clients, Steve, that you and I both worked with, where they can't even go into any public space whatsoever.
Yes.
Without going into a state of hyper vigilance. where they're noticing everything about everyone, about all of it all around them. And she's looking to see where he's looking, and he's looking to see where she saw him looking. And it literally dominates their entire existence.
Yeah.
I've had clients say, we won't leave the house. We'll never leave the house because he's going to see someone or
Yes.
notice something. And that is a hellish way to live.
Well, and I think it even extends beyond that, and we got to be careful because you can see why this is a six-module topic, and these modules are going to be over an hour
Yep.
long because we have had many discussions in Dare to Connect with clients with this over the years, and continue to because it is complicated. But what
Very.
we will say is this: long-term recovery for everyone that we work with, long-term recovery eventually involves a healthy embracement and channeling of all areas of the self. Nowhere in just to burst anyone's fear bubbles, nowhere in Dare to Connect. It's not like once you're there for 9 months, we are like, okay, so the secret to this is just no more sex ever again. That's how you're gonna. That is not how we. That's not what we teach. That is we don't. We argue that that's incredibly unhealthy. At the end of the day, if you when you are talking about full recovery from sexual addiction, as we usually say to guys on day one when they come in our office, we don't want you not having sex. We would like you to be having loads of sex. We just want you to be having healthy, connected, non-escapatory sex. And that's what we continue to teach. And
Yeah,
that and
yeah.
that's what we teach here, right? Is it's all about this connection or dealing with attraction is just a force. Think of it like gravity. It's something that's just in the environment. We're all, like Mark indicated, we're all attracted physically, sexually, and otherwise to things and people all day, every day. And those aren't good or bad. Where it becomes problem is just, it's kind of like the analogy some people like to make around firearms, right? It's just look at it like a hammer. It's so often we want to attack the hammer. Attraction is not the problem. What are you doing with it?
What are you doing with it
What are you
now?
doing with it? Right? That's what's problematic or not problematic.
And I'll tell you where this really started to, maybe this will help this guy that wrote in and other addicts listening. I'll tell you where this really started to change for me. So my addiction started around age 13, 14.
As did mine.
And I had years and years of abuse, physical and emotional abuse, abandonment, string of stepfathers, just a really bad, just a lot of bad news all around. And I discovered as soon as I hit puberty that I had discovered my solution to all things difficult. When I felt the initial feeling of climax, I thought I've discovered my go-to drug for all time. And then I grew
Yeah.
up in the pornography production capital of the world, right? San Fernando Valley, California. And it was all around. And so that became my place to cope, to escape, to avoid, to feel pleasure, to feel wanted, to feel worth, to feel attractive. It became my be all end all. One of the biggest transitions for me in recovery was to realize, Mark, that's a 14-year-old mindset where it's all about body parts and body pieces. It's about a 16th of an inch of skin that covers the human body, and that being the way you see and judge and size everyone up is by a 16th of an inch of them. And I started to realize that that wasn't authentic. It wasn't, I needed to decide if I was going to, quote, grow up and start to see it for what it really was, right? Whole human beings, right? See things holistically and take on the feeling of what is this and what isn't it? Where do I want to express this feeling in my life and where don't I?
Mm.
Am I going to become a fighter of all things abusive, of exploitation, of objectification? Am I going to become a true protector of others while still allowing myself to feel these wonderful feelings, right? But to be mindful, intentional, to channel and direct it as opposed to just shutting it down or just giving myself, wholesale to it. I'll give you an example. I did a lot of years of studying, neuropsychology, neuroscience. Testosterone, which men have enormous amounts of it in our systems, is a wonderful neurochemical. It's incredible. It's often just thought of as the sexual drive, which is part of it. But it has this ability to have us be goal oriented, to narrow in on where we want to go and what we want to achieve. It produces focus. It produces motivation, right? It produces all these amazing things that are part of us as guys, and testosterone is in women also. Why would I want to shut all of that down? Because of this one area that got out of control and absolutely, completely immature and underdeveloped in my life. I don't want to shut all of that down. I want to channel it and direct it and be intentional about it, right? It isn't an all or nothing. Right? There's so much going on there. And that's kind of my message to the guy that wrote into us. You can have both. You can reject the dark and sinister and exploitive and just complete evil nature of pornography, while also embracing all the other aspects of these drives within you. You can have both worlds.
Yeah, so I think that there's, I mean, just kind of as I'm wrapping up my thoughts with this, I think that there are two things. If I was working with this guy, for example, like in my office, I think I'd be focusing on two things. One is definitely a heart-based embracement, is what I'm going to call it, of what he already described intellectually, right? When you come across, and it doesn't mean when you come across pornography per se, right? It means when the idea or wanting to act out with pornography, you looking into putting yourself through some mental exercises, I have found to be really helpful with guys. Because the first thing that when an addict's in recovery, when they think, I want to look at pornography, what's the immediate thought? Oh gosh, I don't think about that. Don't think about that, right? We go to the don'ts.
Yeah,
And
shouldn't.
there's a lot of evidence that points to the idea that the more a person is geared towards don't think about something, it actually causes the brain to fall into a perseverance cycle where
Yeah.
they'll start thinking about that thing. And we won't get into the research behind that today. But I'll tell you what I choose to do with this, and this is 10 plus years, sober, is when those kinds of things come up, I do my very best to normalize the desire. Okay, I want to look at pornography. What is that evidence of? One, it's evidence of the fact that I'm a sexual being. Two, it's evidence, at least in part, that at least I consider myself still to be an addict in recovery, but I was an active guy in active addiction once. And three, what else is going on here, and how do I see the situation for what it really is?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what I try to do is I step back from that and I don't just see the, oh, I want to look at porn, which is what my old brain would act on. I ask myself questions like, well, why? Why do I want to look at porn right now? Right? Why is that coming to mind for me? Why do I want to objectify that woman that's walking along? What's going on for me? What else is happening? Because my brain is trying to meet some sort of a need, right? And in my experience working with guys, and I know Mark would echo this, the vast majority of the reasons, the reasons, quote unquote, behind why a guy looks at porn, for example, are perfectly normal. We've simply found very dysfunctional ways of meeting of unhealthy ways of meeting healthy needs.
Yeah. So some of the things I do, the same thing Steve does, and we teach this to the guys we work with. Okay, I'm having this urge, this desire to do what? And usually what will come to me is I'm wanting to avoid, I'm wanting to escape. I've been burning the candle at both ends and I need a big giant pleasure hit right now.
I'm feeling lonely and I want to feel connection.
Feeling lonely, I want to be connected. I'm right, the list goes on and on. But the famous question we teach is, what's under this?
Yes, correct.
What's under this? What have I been neglecting? How's my self-care been lately? How's my connection with my partner? Right? There are 25 questions you could ask yourself to go into a place of self-analysis. Right? It's about hitting the pause button and not being totally sucked into, right? Oh my gosh, this is just pure lust and running to pornography, or it's got to be complete blackout and shutdown. Whoa. This is a natural part of me. Let me just step back and just put it on pause for a minute. I don't have to go look at pornography right now. Let me step back and ask, what is this about? Let me look at myself. Let me watch. Let me observe. Right? So that I can do what? I can identify underlying causes, underlying motivations, underlying needs and wants that are legitimate. And then I can make hopefully increasingly mature choices about what I am going to do with that.
Yeah.
How do I channel this? How do I direct this? How do I meet the true needs that are under this rather than giving in to the reactive symptom in this moment?
Mm-hmm. So
right?
we normalize it, guys. It's what we
Yeah,
do, right? Rather than going down that road of, now it's not to say that sometimes that can't work, right? I want to be clear, especially when you're in early recovery and we lack the level of mindfulness. Oftentimes we will have to use maybe less functional or less sustainable tactics, like I've got to get away from this, I got to remove myself, and those are all perfectly valid. We
sure.
don't want
What's the
anyone walking away thinking otherwise.
first thing we teach? First tool we teach guys early in recovery: change your environment.
But long-term recovery is about so much more than avoiding pornography. It's about embracing healthiness and embracing your sexuality in a way that is healthy, in a way that is sustainable, and in a way that is not destructive. Because and we're coming at this from this today, and we're really glad this guy wrote in, because we have worked with far too many guys over the years, and Mark and I are examples of this, where we came from cultures, from backgrounds, from upbringings that the messaging so often was just, this is so bad, this is so awful, just turn from it, shun from it, whatever. And you can see where that's gotten our culture today. It is
Yeah,
obviously we want to be turning from those things, but we need to make sure that we're turning from the toxic and not throwing out the sexual baby with the bathwater in
right,
the process.
right.
So we hope that makes sense. And
There's
if it
too much.
doesn't,
Yeah,
dare to connect, 2-week free
yeah,
trial, dare to connect
yeah.
now.com.
No, we know that there's lots that we've said today. We've just barely scratched the surface. So please don't take so, oh, I can't believe these guys. Well, you've heard about 1/100th of what we have to say about
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
right? And again, we will enunciate, getting sober, stop looking at pornography is the priority. And we teach a lot of tools we haven't talked about today, how to stop it in its tracks right now. Crisis management in the moment. But once you start to get a reasonable handle on that, you immediately begin moving to the deeper work. What is this about? What's under this? What are the wants and needs that are pushing me in this direction? Those can be handled in healthy ways. I don't have to shut my entire sexual beingness off in order for this to proceed in a healthy way.
So everyone get your amazing tales into Dare to Connect. Let's work on this. Let's figure it out. Let's
Yeah.
let's let 2025, or whatever year you happen to be listening to this recording in, let this be the year. Let's get it done. We love you guys. We appreciate you as always. Again, we'd love to have you come join us at D2C, but you are always welcome to send in questions, and we will get to those in the order we get them, and usually with a pretty significant time delay, but we will get to them, and you can send those in if you go to that same website, daretoconnectnow.com, and up at the top there's a banner with the PBSE Podcast logo on it. Just click that, and at the bottom of that screen is a contact form where you can send us those questions.
Yeah. And if you have more questions about this topic, if you're like our other D2C people, you do, right? Come on over to Dare to Connect and get them answered immediately. Or you can send it into PBSE. We'll get to it in about 2 months.
Sometime.
Because you have a big backup.
We really do love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for just being you. I mean, the fact that you're even listening to this says more than we can say about all of you. So we just appreciate you. Thank you for your desire to chase connection and to pursue change and growth at any cost. And we will catch you next time.
Yeah. Take care.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.